Trump is very, very bullish for precious metals. I think he's going to try to keep the stock market high. He's going to want to bring interest rates down.
Because his policy will be inflationary, Donald will set the table for another rally for precious metals. Gold's at 3,000, silver's probably at touching 40 at least.
Now you got Trump coming out and talking about Canada being the 51st state. I think it could lead into something like a North American Union where they combine Canada, the United States, and Mexico, their currency. Doesn't change the fact that the currencies are collapsing around the world.
Not to throw banks under the bus or governments in general, but like these guys have been lying enough over the last 100 years that I think people have now caught on to it and they're like, I don't particularly trust my bank. I don't particularly trust the government. They witnessed the financial crisis. They've witnessed the COVID situation. What else exists? Gold and silver, cryptocurrency.
I know exactly where I'll be putting it. Precious metals will be the main focal point. I don't want to be caught in losing 80% of my portfolio in crypto. Are you looking to protect your wealth with gold and silver? Book a strategy session with myself or any of our precious metals experts. Click the link in the description below and get started today. Hi, welcome Mark Yaxley from Strategic Wealth Preservation, episode 26 of the Gold Awakening. Thanks for joining the show today.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. Mark, tell me a little bit about your business, Strategic Wealth Preservation, and how you got here.
Sure. Well, before SWP, I started my career back in 2006. So coming up on my 20 years in the industry. Joined SWP or co-founded SWP in 2014. My two partners being from the Cayman Islands, it was a very interesting place for a young Canadian guy to go set up shop. And basically what we did is we set up the equivalent of what you'll find in New York, London, Zurich, or Singapore in the Cayman Islands. That was our goal initially, was to set up a world-class storage facility that offered a two-way market for our clients so they could buy and sell physical gold and silver, platinum and palladium down there. And since 2014, it's grown substantially, and we've added now, we're up to 12 locations worldwide that we offer our clients to buy and sell metals and store them with us. So that's really our niche is, you might say, offshore storage and trading.
Awesome. So are there physical locations where you can walk in and buy, or is it all done virtually?
You can walk in and visit and audit your metals, but they're not retail stores. They're what we call secure storage facilities or vault locations. So depending on the country and the different vault operators that we're working with, the setup can be, different from location to location. But essentially, you're not going there, to buy a couple of Silver Eagles. You've probably purchased with us online or over the phone already. We've deposited the metal, and then you can go view it if that's your intention, or you could take delivery or possession of it.
Awesome. So you're obviously seeing a lot of demand as far as storage goes. I mean, what's the main reasons people rather not keep it at their own house? I mean, I hear it all the time here as well. We offer storage facility services as well. Okay. I try to push them into keeping it at their own house, but a lot of people don't feel safe or comfortable with that. So, I mean, what are some of the reasons people prefer to use your services?
Yeah, I mean, it depends on the location. So if you look at the offshore ones that we offer, Cayman, Zurich, Singapore, kind of the big three that most people would end up using. Generally, they are either they have too many eggs in one basket. So they've got all of their wealth accumulated in one particular jurisdiction and they're looking for diversity because, they might have some fears of like geopolitical risk, or it could even be an actual security issue. If you have clients who are living in Latin America, for example, and they feel that there's a certain level of corruption and possible government intervention. But we see that a lot with our American clients as well. They've accumulated, all of their wealth in the United States, and they have the opportunity to get some of that wealth out of the, the financial system and offshore. And so they'll come to us. But then we also offer domestic storage in the US in 5 locations. And so people are literally just like, I probably got too much gold or silver at home. I'm losing a little bit of sleep over this. I've got, $50,000, $100,000 under my pillow. That's too much. I want to get it somewhere where it's, it's safe, it's insured. It's not in a safe deposit box necessarily at a bank, because that's not an ideal situation. So a variety of reasons, but typically those are kind of the 2 high level ones.
Awesome. So is it when you're storing for customers, like, do they have their own type of safety deposit type of box for each individual? Is that how it works?
So we don't use safe deposit boxes. We found those a little bit inconvenient because they require two keys generally. So there's like one key is held by the company and one is held by the client, which is tricky when it's offshore and the client's not there. So what we do instead is we give everyone these like industrial plastic bins. So everything is fully allocated, fully segregated for that client. It's got a little license plate identifier on it. So it is equivalent to a safe deposit box, but we've just gotten rid of the keys because it's a little bit troublesome to mail keys back and forth and all that kind of stuff.
Awesome. That's a cool idea. So overall, obviously, business is growing. I mean, what is your current? What's the pulse of the precious metals market in your world? Because I mean, we have I could tell you what it's like here, but I'm curious, what are things like where you're at?
Well, I definitely want to hear how the pulse is on your end too, because it's always good to exchange that feedback with fellow industry
Sure.
members. On our end, look, ever since COVID through, I would say basically till the day Donald Trump got elected in November, business had been very brisk. It was good times for the precious metals industry, a steady demand, and we had there's some peaks in there where demand was really really strong. The pulse was good, not only in North America, Europe, Asia, everywhere. Things changed a little bit when Donald got elected, as they did in 2016. We saw a little bit less demand. A lot of our clients are Republicans, conservative investors who may have had some fears related to who won that election. And when Donald got in, their fears were kind of put at ease. The phone didn't ring as much. So it has quieted down over the last quarter. But that, I think, it's an interesting day. Now he's being inaugurated. But I think that's being priced into the market. And now we're starting to see metals tick back up. And you're starting to see renewed interest in metals. So, yeah, I'd love to hear where you guys are at, though, in
Honestly,
your world.
it's the exact same. To be honest with you, we're seeing it has slowed down drastically. I'm not going to lie, which is, I mean, I understand it puts people's mind at ease, Trump being in, but the reality is, I think Trump is very, very bullish for precious metals, and I don't know what your take is, but I think he's going to try to keep the stock market high. He's going to want to bring interest rates down to near zero. Obviously, they won't come down to that level, I don't believe, but I know last time around he wanted to bring the interest rates to negative interest rates. So he's bullish for precious metals overall, in my opinion. So I do understand. I do realize that the Republicans in the world were hoping he got in, and by him getting in, there was a calm around the world, and that usually precious metals people buy it because they're uneasy. But
Mhm.
that doesn't change the fact that the economy is a disaster in the United States, in Canada, globally. Doesn't change the fact that the currencies are collapsing around the world. Canada specifically is really getting crushed, and I don't even in the U.S. I mean, all you got to do is compare the dollar. I always try to compare the dollar to gold and silver and cryptocurrencies, and you see gold last year made all-time highs, went up over 30%. Cryptocurrencies went up over 100%. To me, that's the true indication of what's happening with the dollar, not
Mhm.
necessarily the CPI numbers that they throw out there, whether 2, 3, 4%, whatever they want to lie to you about. I mean, I think we all know we're probably above 10% or at least there.
Mhm.
Um, so, I mean, personally, I'm very, very bullish for precious metals because I don't think the economy is getting any better. I don't think the wars are going to go away anytime soon. And I don't think inflation is going to slow down. And I think Trump is just going to make the inflation worse, personally. If he implements tariffs, that's inflationary. If he lowers interest rates, that's inflationary. I mean, to me, everything he stands for is inflationary, and that's great for precious metals. And even during his last term, I know precious metals performed fairly well. I think this time, I think you're going to see historic gains in the precious metals market based off of his policies, based off of the economic turmoil, and based off of the global uncertainty and the wars that are happening around the world. So I don't know if you have the same viewpoint as me, but what are your thoughts on the current opportunity in precious metals compared to other asset classes?
Yeah, I think that it all, I agree with everything you said. And I think that Donald will set the table for another rally for precious metals because his policies will be inflationary. There will probably be a lag time. Typically that inflation, kind of like the gold price adjusting to the inflation rate does take time. We saw that in like some periods between 2020 and 2024. I remember reading a lot of industry commentary, and people are like, gold's not doing its job. It's not, it's not keeping up to inflation. It does. It just takes time. It doesn't happen the next day. It happens like 6 months later, 12 months later. That's when, so I think what'll end up happening is Donald will do his work. We might see a little bit of sideways trading, kind of like what we've seen in the last quarter. Is not very exciting. People have to remember we had reached 2750 gold. You had an all-time high in there. It's not going to stay there forever. It's completely normal that you're going to see profit taking pullbacks, all kinds of market conditions.
Which
But
is
I think,
healthy. It's healthy
yeah,
for the price.
it's absolutely healthy. Exactly. You need to know that, right? But what'll end up happening is the table will be set for another rally because of all the inflationary policy. So 2 years from now, for example, we could see some serious movement in metals. I think this year, setting expectations realistically, a little bit of sideways trading for the metals. I think the average price for gold they're calling for about 2750, which is we're not far off from it already. So
Sure. You think
yeah.
we get to 3,000 this year?
We could touch 3,000. Yeah, I think we could give it a run. It's a big psychological barrier and psychological number for gold investors. Silver is interesting. They're calling for 3650 US dollars as the average price, which I think is a little bit high. But again, if gold's at 3,000, silver's probably at touching 40 at least. So it'll be an interesting year, but I think overall not as exciting as last year in terms of price appreciation.
But that could all change in a heartbeat, right? With all the global uncertainty. I mean, obviously, a war can just escalate in a big way. I mean, there's a lot of things. You got the commercial banks that could really implode at any point if this 10-year Treasury yield continues to go higher and higher. It feels like they're losing control of that again. Which again, I think the Fed is going to have to come in here and really aggressively buy Treasuries to keep that interest rate suppressed. What are your thoughts in terms of black swan events and how they could potentially influence the markets?
Yeah, interesting. I mean, you mentioned war. Yeah, there's quite a bit of conflict, in some pretty major conflict, obviously, in Europe. Middle East is peace talks and ceasefires. That's great, and everyone's happy to hear it. How long will they be maintained? I think the war premium in general, I'm sure you've seen this, is kind of a short-lived event in general. You get these spikes in the market because there's a new conflict or an escalation in conflict. It doesn't tend it helps the floor, but it doesn't really create a long term rally. The monetary policy issues, the debt issues, those are the things that really create long term rallies for precious metals, and the inflation adjustment really over time. Black swan events, yeah. I mean, it's what I know for certain. And if you haven't learned this lesson yet, just go back to COVID, ultimate black swan event.
Right.
Um, they happen, and having metals in your portfolio will only help you in a situation like that.
Maybe remind people how precious metals performed during COVID, if you don't mind.
Yeah, it was a pretty dark time for metals leading up to then. We had a stretch. Trump came into power in 2016. It was fairly quiet. Not that the metals did terribly. You mentioned earlier they performed, decently, but the phone wasn't ringing very much, and it was awfully quiet. And then, I mean, I remember. I mean, for us personally, our sales volume during COVID went up about 300%. We had to hire a lot of staff. I remember the day you just go to your desk at
I know.
7:30 in the morning, and you didn't leave your desk until like 5:30 in the afternoon, and you just scribbled down orders all day long and open new accounts. It was really off the charts. I'd only witnessed that one other time in my career, which was a financial crisis in 2008, 2011. So comparable in terms of volume. And so what ends up happening is people rush to the door, right? Like they're not ready. Then you have this huge black swan event. People all want gold or silver to hedge against the risk, and everyone rushes to the door. Whereas what you should be doing is preparing slowly but surely and accumulating your ounces, getting your house in order before these events occur. We tell people that.
Now,
They don't.
do you think there's a real risk the next time there is an event that people aren't going to be able to purchase their metals? For example, we were waiting 1 week with our wholesalers for physical silver. After COVID happened, I think we were at one point we were waiting 4 months to get physical silver at the door. And to me, after 4 months, almost feel like the wholesalers are going to say, "Sorry, we can't sell you anything." Do you see that event coming? And to me, it's going to be some type of banking crisis. Maybe a big commercial bank goes down. Um, I mean, what are your thoughts in terms of? Do you think there will be a time where people aren't going to be able to get metals when they want them?
Yeah, so it has happened. It happened during COVID, like you said. We saw some months of delays. The whole supply chain. There was that one was complicated because you actually had like FedEx wasn't delivering in some places. You had essential deliveries only. The mines literally closed. Like there was all kinds of stuff that had never really happened before.
Sure.
But if you look at the financial crisis, '08, which is probably more likely to happen again
Hmm.
than COVID, let's say,
Hmm.
what ended up happening then is demand surged, and what people need to know is that the mines were still producing at the same rate, but the retail and wholesale demand was off the charts. So the allocations and the production that the mints and refineries were pumping out just wasn't nearly enough. And that's why you end up with these lag times. So it's not that metal isn't available out of the mine, it's that it's not available to the retail market. So to answer your question, yes, it can happen. It has happened. It will happen again. So yeah, taking advantage. Another thing to remember, right? Premiums now are tight again.
They are.
You don't want to wait until you can't get metal because not only can't you get it, if you can get it, the premiums are ridiculous. So,
So true. Yeah, I'm trying to get as much as I can right now. I keep running out of money, but yeah, it's so silver for me is what I'm really passionate about in terms of opportunity. I mean, I love gold too, but just because of the gold silver ratio being so out of whack and gold being 8 times more expensive than silver, and meanwhile silver's only coming out of the ground 7 to 1, where historically it was 16 to 1. And I know the historical average of the gold silver ratio over time was 16 to 1. So I just see a lot more upside opportunity in silver, especially because of the industrial demand, especially with solar panel growth and electric cars. I mean, I think between the two, I don't know if it's 50% of the annual supply of silver is just going to those two industries alone. Those didn't exist in 1980. And in 1980, silver got to $50 US. Now, I know the Hunt brothers were involved with cornering the market or however you want to say it, but for silver to be, to me, I think it's the only asset in the world that is cheaper than its price in 1980. There might be something else that I don't know about, but maybe the only asset where the demand is actually greater than it was in 1980, but the price is cheaper. And inflation, we know real estate and stocks, for example, are up 15 to 20 times since 1980. And silver, here we are down 40%. So I kind of have these really lofty expectations of silver, probably higher than most people. I'm in the $500 to $1,000 camp by the end of the decade. Potentially even in the 2030s, you could even get into the thousands of dollars, depending on how crazy the inflation gets and how much the dollar collapses. Um, what are your thoughts on silver? And are you kind of in the camp of 50-50 gold, silver? I know there's a lot of people who say, yeah, just buy 50% gold, 50% silver. For me, I look at it as, okay, what's the ratio? Well, the ratio is 80 to 1, then I'm only buying silver. So for my personal investments, I'm only buying silver right now. I'm not diversifying with gold. I already own some gold from the past. I'm not buying any more. What are your thoughts on where you see more opportunity and why is that?
yeah, all very valid points. Silver production is actually, I believe, declining slightly at this point in time, and then you've got all this increased industrial demand, as you pointed out. The case is strong for silver, and it it's let a lot of people down. Obviously, not only from the 1980, but also if you bought silver in the high 40s during the financial crisis 08 11, you're still underwater. So it's
Sure.
left a bad taste in a lot of people's mouth. But your question being where does the opportunity lie and what's the portfolio mix? You're absolutely right. I think the greater opportunity, if you're looking to create more wealth, the
Right.
greater opportunity is silver.
Right.
If you're looking for a sure bet,
Sure.
you're probably going to want to be either 50-50 gold or even longer gold because gold has proven over time to, obviously looking at the price, to outperform silver. And I know they're completely different metals, completely different applications at this point. They're neither of them are really money or used as money anymore. But the gold price is what it is, and the silver price is what it is. So if you're looking for a cornerstone, gold. But if you're looking for opportunity, silver for sure. And even short term, I mean, that like in a good market, silver is going to outperform gold. So there's more short-term opportunity, and hopefully long-term silver starts catching up to where it should be. You know
Yeah,
that.
like when I bring up those 1970 prices of precious metals and the moves that they made, silver went up 40 times and gold went up 25 times. People are, they don't believe it, and then when I compare it to how real estate and stocks did in that decade, which was not very well at all, somewhere between 100 and 200% returns. I mean, precious metals was the clear winner in that inflationary environment where the dollar almost collapsed. So they had to raise interest rates to above 15% just to save the dollar. The difference this time around is they're not going to be able to raise the interest rates to that level to save the dollar, because you already saw it. They brought it up to 5%. The economy almost collapsed over. Like it was bad, and they're really in a tough spot. Like what are your thoughts in terms of how they kind of keep this all together over the next 5 years? Like, are interest rates going to just be in this pocket of 2 to 5% for the next several years, and just have the economy continue to just chug along? And what are your thoughts in terms of how you think they keep this together? Because I mean, to me, I look at the 10-year Treasury a lot to kind of as a leading indicator as to what's going on, and it's signaling some alarm bells right now in a big way. And I don't know if that's where things could really start to go sour, or if the Fed just comes in and just papers over it again, which is likely to happen. But at some point, they might just pull the rug and say, you know what, let's just let this bond market collapse and let the stock. I don't think that's going to happen under Trump's term, to be honest with you. Obviously, he wants to be
Mm.
known as one of the greatest presidents ever, so he'll do whatever he can to keep it all together. But which what I believe is going to be just printing more money, buying these bonds, keeping interest rates suppressed. So I think that's what we're going to continue to see. But at some point, this system has to implode. Like, do you actually see that end game where, because obviously they talk about the reset all the time, the Great Reset. This 2030 is really talked about a lot by the World Economic Forum. I mean, do you see that end game coming, and do you see us going to a new monetary system, whether it's central bank digital currencies? Like, where do you see, or do we just have a calm 4 years under Trump? Like, and then the next president, it all falls apart. Like, where are we at? Because obviously they could pull the rug out anytime they want. And will it happen under Trump? I don't know. Um, I don't know. What are your thoughts? I know I
Yeah,
asked there,
yeah,
so
a lot of good, yeah, a lot of good theoretical questions in there. You know, most politicians live for their term only. They're very short-sighted. They don't want to be. They want to be known as the best. They don't want to be the ones to pull the rug. They don't want to be the ones to have the economy collapse on their watch. They'll set it up for the next guy. So, and to your point, and what I've, my remark, and I'm not an economist, and I'm a gold guy through and through, but watching the markets and watching the Fed for the last nearly 20 years, what I realize is they're really good at what they do. Like they have a limited number of tricks, but they use those extremely well to kind of kick the can down the road. So my expectation is over the next 4 years they will continue to use the same mechanics that they've always used. They will continue to kick the can and try to squeeze as much juice out of this as they can before something dramatic happens. The question is whether Trump is going to want to leave behind a legacy where he attempts to change the system, or maybe more realistically, other countries that are fed up of being tied to the U.S. dollar, having to settle on using the U.S. dollar, which we've seen. More and more countries are moving away from the U.S. dollar and the settlements in U.S. dollars. Using alternative currencies, using gold. You're seeing central banks accumulate record amounts of gold. Part of that, at least, has to do with the fact that they don't want to be holding as much U.S. dollars in their reserves as they once did. They're diversifying away from the dollar, so that you are seeing a general trend of the world moving away from the U.S. dollar. But will that be the next 4 years? Will it be 40 years from now? I couldn't tell you. It's a tough one, and I try not to get too tied up in the what could happen, and
yeah.
just know that if I'm not only selling gold and silver but accumulating it from my own family, that I sleep well at night knowing that, and I'm hedged against all kinds of craziness.
Yeah, same. We don't care what happens, right? I mean, we're prepared. No matter the
Yeah.
worst situation, we're in good spots because we have metals, right? I mean, that eventually saves you in the end of a currency collapse, an economic collapse, whatever the
Yeah.
collapse may be. Precious metals will save you, and that's kind of how I look at it. And you're kind of leading me into an interesting topic regarding BRIC nations and moving away from the U.S. dollar. Now you got Trump coming out and talking about Canada being the 51st state. Um, at first I was like, wow, this guy's crazy. But now he keeps talking about it over and over and over again. To me, where there's smoke, there's fire. So I feel like there's something here where we may be entering a time where I'm not saying we're going to merge the countries into one, but I think he's going to have. I think it could lead into something like a North American Union, which they've been talking about for decades, where they combine Canada, the United States, and Mexico, their currencies, not the countries. I'm not saying Canada will no longer be Canada, but where they merge our currencies. And to be honest with you, I think there's a lot of Canadians. I mean, sadly, will actually probably want that because they believe that the U.S. dollar is stronger, and they think the Canadian dollar is collapsing. So they might look at it as, you know what, that's such a bad thing. And Mexico may be the same. I'm not sure. What are your thoughts? Because I own a foreign exchange company, and 90% of our business is based off of U.S. CAD trades. And I'm not going to lie, I'm a little nervous that they could create the Amero. It's what they used to call it back in the day. Do you think this is a possibility, and or do you think Canada becoming the 51st state is a possibility, or do you think it's just Trump talking tough to kind of get Canada to kind of be a little more,
You
I
know,
guess, allow him to do what they want to do. Let's put it that way.
yeah, he's a great manipulator and negotiator. So I'm certain there's some of that. Definitely, it serves two purposes. Where short term, he's going to leverage that in negotiations with Canada. There are some legitimate problems, in terms of drug importation into the U.S. that they're trying to tackle with the fentanyl issues coming through the Western port, through Vancouver port. And then you've got the immigration problem and the drug problem from Mexico. So there's some legitimate issues that need to be tied up and discussed in those negotiations. When I first saw the tweets coming from Donald I was really upset. I was like, what a dick. How could he, being Canadian, how could he even assume that we would allow something so ridiculous? And I was quite angry with it. But over the past few weeks, having conversations with friends and being a little bit more, realistic about it, I'm like, there could be some benefit. And maybe, the Canadian dollar, is in a really challenged position at this point in time. I don't think Canadians in general, I mean, they've done surveys as like 10% of Canadians would want this to happen, but I don't think Canadians really want to identify as Americans necessarily. But in terms of trade,
Right.
and the states would be very interested in the natural resources that Canada has, that Mexico has. But long story short, if push came to shove and the US economy started to collapse and the dollar was so out of favor or collapsing, I can guarantee you they will do whatever is necessary to
Yeah.
keep their country going and to keep their economy going. And if that means either forcefully invading a country or doing it with pen and paper, they will make it happen. They've proven that throughout their history. They're not afraid to insert themselves or send troops or fight a war, start a war. They will do what it takes. I hope it doesn't come to that. Obviously, I'd rather have a peaceful neighbor than that.
Yeah, of course. Now, what about when it comes to the currencies? I mean, what are your thoughts on the Canadian dollar? I mean, obviously today Trump announced that he's taking his foot off the gas when it comes to tariffs, and the Canadian dollar rebounded and went up close to 2%. What are your thoughts on the future of the Canadian dollar and also the U.S. dollar? Because a lot of people think we're going to $1.50, or even 50 cents on the dollar of the U.S. dollar. What are your thoughts on the future of the Canadian dollar and then also on the U.S. dollar?
Yeah, I've heard the 150 number thrown around. We use an FX company out of London, and our account representative was kind of sending us that brief last week. Um, I think a lot of it, some of it at least, is going to depend on what Canada does with itself. We've weakened our position over the last 8 years. We have not used our natural resources as wisely as we probably could. We've made it extremely difficult for oil and gas companies to operate as profitably as it could. The government needs to be smaller in Canada. They need to be more efficient and responsible. I think the change that is coming here, and we're very likely to end up with a conservative government in the next cycle, I think is going to be good for us in general and our trade. We're going to be much better negotiators and probably use the assets that we have here in this country better than we have. I think that'll strengthen our position and our dollar. As per the other global macro factors, including the US's behavior, I can't comment. I don't, it's hard to predict, but I do think that we'll see some improvement domestically, which I'm looking forward to.
If you think your money is safe, think again. Our economy is on the brink of total collapse. Think back to the 2008 financial crisis. Inflation skyrocketing, stocks tumbling, and banks on the verge of collapse. Sound familiar? It's not just history, it's a warning. And ignoring this warning could be the biggest financial mistake of your life. In 2008, gold and silver were by far the best performing assets. That is why now is the time to invest in precious metals. At Can-Am Bullion, you can order both gold and silver directly from our online store. Can-Am is also an authorized dealer with the Royal Canadian Mint, so you can be rest assured that you are dealing with a reputable bullion dealer. Do you really want to wait for an economic collapse? Now is the time to make a smart and informed decision and protect your wealth with gold and silver. Click the link below to book a consultation with myself or any of our precious metals experts.
That's good. That's good. Let's talk about gold here. I guess for first-time investors, because a lot of people that are purchasing precious metals right now, they're buying it for the first time. They have a lot of questions. Maybe kind of tell them how you would kind of walk them through purchasing gold and silver for the first time and allocation, buying government mint versus private mint. Like, what are your thoughts in terms of a first-time investor getting into the metals market? How do you talk to your clients? What are some of the questions you ask? And how do you go about that?
Yeah, and I hate to say this, but to be completely honest, SWP, our company, is probably not the place you would come to the first time you buy precious metals, because we're in the storage business and in the offshore business. Typically, our clients come to us, they've already bought metals for a while and they're pretty sophisticated. But I've worked on the other end of that. I had my own little gold shop in Nova Scotia at one point. I always say to people, if you can walk into a business and have an hour-long conversation, if the guy on the other on the other side of the table is going to afford it to you, to talk about your first purchase, that's probably the most ideal thing you could do. Go in there, ask a million questions, look at everything, touch everything, but the type of questions they should be asking is, should I own bars or coins? Should I own sovereign mint or private mint? What are the differences? Obviously, I'm going to pay less for the private mint, but the resale value on the sovereign mint product is going to be better long term. Is there some cost savings for me if I buy larger denominations like 100-ounce silver bars versus 100 silver maple leafs? Those kind of conversations are really important for first-time investors, because the opposite of that, when they don't get educated and they fall for the first offer that's put in front of them, sometimes it's the wrong offer. It's not good for them. It's good for the company selling the metal. They get fleeced. It leaves either a bad taste in their mouth, or, in worst case, they tell all their friends and family that, I got fleeced by a gold dealer. That's the last thing guys like you and I want.
Right.
You want to have those honest conversations and answers. So long story short, I'd say sovereign mint product is a great place to start. It's really safe in terms of, yeah, you're going to pay a little bit more, but you have a premium product. You can sell it anywhere in the world. It's extremely liquid, and the resale value will always be fair.
Right.
And over the long term, as you accumulate more precious metals, you want to try to buy in bigger denominations where possible and save yourself some premium. Because once you have enough gold maples or gold eagles or silver maples, silver eagles, whatever you're buying on the sovereign side, once you have enough of those, you can really just get into the bars and save some money and buy, LBMA approved refineries and mints, and you'll do just fine, and you'll cut down your cost over the spot price. That's kind of, to sum it up in a nutshell.
Yeah, I think the only other thing I kind of tell first-time investors is starting with the 1 ounce. If you're for silver specifically, starting with the 1 ounce denominations, just because it's good to have. It's easier for liquidating in the future. It's better for bartering. Even on the maples and eagles, for example, when silver starts to run out, those coins are impossible to get. I mean, at least with my wholesaler, I think that's one thing I've noticed is the first thing to run out is the most popular stuff, which is eagles, and then second is maples. So I try to tell people now, like, get some maples while they're available and the premiums are low. Because I mean, those are the most sought after, and those are the ones that can go up in value, not just as the price of silver goes up, but as the scarcity becomes more severe. I think you see the premiums on those products go up significantly more than the others. I think the Eagles, when we saw these shortages during COVID, were selling 40% more than the Maples. I mean, it's like,
Yep.
wow. And people were buying them. And people were asking me, should I buy them? I'm like, no, don't buy these now. I mean, wait for the premiums to make sense, because I'd rather the extra silver personally. I mean, to overpay like that. And a lot of people they just wanted those Eagles. And the other thing they wanted it right away. Do you see that as well? Do you see people that want it in hand? Like they don't want to wait. I know you don't necessarily deliver. You kind of, do you store all of the precious metals that you sell, or will you also sell and let them take possession as well?
We do deliver, so we do offer home deliveries. So either you can just buy a monster box of Silver Eagles, have them delivered to your house, no problem. Or you can buy a monster box Silver Eagles, store them for 10 years, and then have that box delivered to you as well. You can do it either way. But yeah, people do want it in hand, especially during the crisis. And the fact of the matter is, we can't do it because the wholesalers, lagging behind in their fulfillment. So again,
How are
if
you? How are
you
you with those situations? I mean, the amount of people that just walked out of my store was insane. I'm like, listen, there's nothing I can do. I'm not
yeah.
selling you my last monster box of maples or whatever that may be. I'm just not. I'm not, because I want mine in hand as well, right? Like I don't want to be selling all my inventory just because
Yeah.
you won't buy it otherwise. Because I know they're not going to be able to get it anywhere else. The reality is, a lot of people, if they couldn't get it in their hands, they couldn't buy it. Like, did you have a plan for those situations? Like, what were you guys doing?
Yeah, so we did take orders. We notified the client, said, look, fulfillment is 3 months, up to 3 months in some cases. If you can accept that, we will take your order. If you can't accept that, that's fine. We understand. In our case, again, a lot of it was going to storage, so the client isn't going to see it anyways. But when they go to a retail shop and they're like, yeah, I want to walk out with something, even if it's Silver Eagles at $15 over spot,
They'll take it.
which it was, which is nuts. I was the same as you. I'm like, don't buy it. Don't buy Silver Eagles.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, we get it. But so the other mechanism that we would use in some cases is we'd say, if, for example, because there were some products that wholesalers wouldn't even take an order for because they were completely like sold out.
Right.
So we'd say you can lock like an unallocated position, lock the spot price, pay us for that. Once the product becomes available, we can settle the premium on a side note. So I've seen other companies do that, but yeah, it's challenging when you're running a shop.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, the wholesalers were pretty cool about it. I think they were only making us pay for, was it the premium at the time? I can't remember. It's been so long since we've had to wait for metals. But is that how they were dealing with you guys as well? I know that because we always usually have to pay 100% of the cost, but then I know they allowed us to pay less. They came back to us and said, you know what, going forward, we're only going to make you pay.
Yeah,
I forget if it was the spot price or the premium, to be honest with you. But
to lock the order. Yeah, I can't recall either, to be honest. Our wholesaler was pretty adequate with it, and as a business, now we've got a number of trading accounts, so we've got different avenues to go get product.
right.
So yeah, but challenging times, good times for dealers to be sold out in a sense. You
Was
sell
that
everything
an
in the
administrative
door.
nightmare for you guys when you started having to take orders 3 months out? Like, we weren't prepared for it, to be honest with you. I mean, we got through it. It was just, I mean, I think it was good to learn how to do it properly, so in the future you're prepared. But I mean, were you guys prepared for what came during that time?
No, were we prepared? No, it was excellent for our business because it challenged us, and we had to bring on staff. I ended up hiring family members, and we all worked out of my basement at one point just to keep up. You got like one guy's on customer service, one guy in compliance, order taking, trading, aside from our regular operations. But it got pretty crazy. But the 3 months, as long as the client knew, it was okay. But as soon as the first day past the 3 month mark,
Yeah,
that metal hadn't arrived, you were getting a phone call for
right.
sure. And yeah.
It was full on panic. It was crazy, crazy times. So let's talk about CBDCs for a bit and central bank digital currencies, because obviously it's a hot topic. It's kind of cooled down in terms of conversation around it, but I know you had the ECB come out and talk about introducing central bank currencies. Bank of Canada, same thing. The U.S., I know Trump's saying he'll never allow that, but I think if push came to shove and there was some type of banking crisis, for example, like a cyber attack or or whatnot, they may not have no choice. What are your thoughts? I mean, if you go to the Bank of Canada website right now, you'll see all about the introduction of central bank digital currency. So, in my opinion, it's just a matter of when, not if. What are your thoughts in terms of how they're going to bring those in, or do you think they'll actually be a part of our future? And do you think it will be in tandem with our current fiat currency, and then eventually they'll transition and move us all over? Or do you think it won't come, it won't happen, and it will fail? Or do you think it's something that is coming and it will be inevitable?
I think it is inevitable. I think the move towards a cashless society is well underway. You see it statistically. I mean, some countries, I think Sweden is top of the list. They're at like less than 10% cash. And living in like traveling through Europe and even in Canada now, like everything is card. It's somewhat generational. Obviously, you have people that grew up going to the bank every couple of days, always carry cash in their wallets. I think for that reason, you will have to have some sort of transition because you're always going to have 70 and 80-year-old people in your population, and
Right.
they might not understand how certain things work or online banking. They still want to do things old school, and so you're probably going to have some sort of transition period. But call it 2040, you're probably there where there's almost no cash floating around. I'd still like to have some in my safe, but yeah, I think it's inevitable. And what that looks like and how, I mean, ultimately, all the government cares about is tax. So all they care about is tax collection and how can they optimize tax collection
And knowing how you're spending your money too, right?
and knowing how you're spending your money and information about us. So it makes perfect sense for their agenda.
For sure.
How does gold fit into that? Because gold is so the opposite of that. Obviously you can have gold backed tokens and, there's a lot of stuff out there already, but physical gold, physical silver, unless they outlaw it, I think it becomes the perfect kryptonite to that system.
100%.
So another reason, long term, to probably have some physical gold and silver in your safe for
Yeah,
that day.
I agree. I think precious metals is super bullish in that environment. I mean, that's going to be your cash outside. Like, you're going to go get some work done on your house. You got to pay the guy $5,000. He wants cash. There's no more cash. Well, there's some silver. There's an ounce of gold or whatever that may be. And I think that's going to be your new bartering system. Obviously, cryptocurrencies is another way to go about that. Let's talk about central bank or cryptocurrencies a bit. I'm personally very bullish on cryptos. I've been involved in the space for about 8 years now. What are your thoughts on crypto? And do you think, and I think that's another reason metals has kind of calmed down because crypto's kind of been taken off. And I think it's taken a lot of the money out of the metals because there's more of a frenzy and FOMO in crypto right now, especially with Trump as president. So I think once that cools down, you may see some of the smart money go back into metals. But for now, what are your thoughts on crypto and how can it go hand in hand with precious metals and they both go up simultaneously?
I think, yeah, I'm an enthusiast as well. From a business point of view, we've been accepting crypto since 2017. So
Nice.
we were actually like the first business in the Cayman Islands to accept crypto as payment for services, and so you can buy gold with crypto. We'll settle your sale in crypto if you're selling to us. So we're totally on board. From an investor standpoint, yeah, I think you should own both. I don't see any reason anymore. Like there was probably a certain point in time when crypto was relatively new, and obviously there are some tokens you might want to avoid because they're worthless or there's really nothing there, or we've seen some bad elements involved in the crypto space. I've seen come across some dodgy characters that fleece some people, but if you're going like major currencies, I think it's a pretty safe bet. And at this point in time, there's no argument to say you shouldn't have 5, maybe 10% of your portfolio in cryptocurrency. Like I don't have any arguments to argue against it. Therefore, I own it personally. And even clients of mine who are like late 60s, 70, 80, I'm seeing them diversify into crypto. And I'm like, good for you. Absolutely wise choice. Your grandchildren will thank
Yeah,
you for that one. And
100%.
probably think you're cooler for it as well than the gold coins that you're going to hand down to them. But I think there's room for both. And hopefully they can live symbiotically and all that. Yeah.
Yeah, I think they will. I think they will. I think they both have a very bright future. I guess your clientele. I mean, are you dealing with mostly corporations, individuals, high net worth individuals, combination of both? Um, who's your main customer right now?
Yeah, mostly private individuals. Probably about 80% private individuals. Kind of like mid to high net worth would be the segment. We do have some family office business, which is great. Some trusts, foundations are kind of this new popular mechanism that wealthy people are using to accumulate and optimize their tax situations. So yeah, seeing that, but we also have 18-year-old clients, and we love when young people get started and they get into metal, and I'm like, I wish I had known this when I was 18 because I,
Yeah, it's an interesting demographic because I feel like it's the 60 and above, and then there's these the younger generations that's really understanding silver and its potential. I think it's kind of the people who have actually educated themselves. I feel it's like the really, really smart younger kids that have actually put the time and effort into understanding money and understanding inflation and the history of money. I mean, I think they're buying both metals and crypto, and I think it's an interesting demographic in terms of who's purchasing metals. I mean, for you guys, are you kind of seeing that same level of interest, or are you kind of all over the map in terms of demographic?
Yeah, I mean, our average client is 55, male. So you definitely have that stereotypical, gold investor is accumulated wealth. They're protecting their money, generational thinking, so on. But yeah, we have some. You're right. I think the 20, like maybe it's like now they're like 26 and down.
Yep.
They witnessed the financial crisis. They've witnessed the COVID situation. They have a little bit of money now. They're working.
Hmm.
And yeah, they're like, well, traditional, advice from my bank, why am I to trust these? And to be quite honest, not to throw banks under the bus or governments in general, but like these guys have been lying enough over the last 100 years that I think people have now caught on to it. And they're like, I don't particularly trust my bank. I don't particularly trust the government. What else exists? Gold and silver, cryptocurrency, so alternative investments have definitely picked up people's interest.
For sure.
And I think, yeah, young people are pretty clued in.
And I think a
it's
lot
good.
of them made some good amount of money in crypto too over the last few years.
Yeah,
So a lot of them are trying to diversify and not be 100% into crypto. And metals is the perfect spot, right? So
yeah.
we doubled. I had a couple clients today that was their exact situation, and yeah, I think that trend is going to continue. I think at the end of this bull market of 2025 for crypto, I think you're going to see a huge investment. I think a lot of profit taking is going to happen this time around versus the last couple bull markets. I think a lot of people got caught in that last bull market and then they kind of pulled the rug quicker before everybody expected. I'm in that club. So I'm looking to take profits in this bull market in 2025 personally. And I know exactly where I'll be putting it. I mean, precious metals will be the main focal point. I don't want to be caught in losing 80% of my portfolio in crypto. So, I mean, do you expect kind of a similar cycle when it comes to crypto, is somewhat ending later on this year? What are your thoughts in terms of where you expect the crypto bull market to end?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not. I wouldn't say I'm a crypto. Like I own Bitcoin, and it's a very much a long term holding for me. But I can totally see what you're explaining. We have clients doing exactly that, where they will, as soon as they feel the market's topping out in crypto, they'll sell it, come into gold. Gold's a nice holding pattern for them. They might see some appreciation there. They're comfortable with the asset class, but when their primary interest is the crypto market, so when that they're like, oh, there's going to be another rally because I don't know, crypto's interesting. It's like it rallies because people just talk about it more. It's like it
All FOMO. It's all FOMO.
yeah, it's like social, kind of the social investing dynamic, and it's the FOMO factor, and so because of that, I would say it's almost a little bit easier to predict when those markets are going to occur, and not that they always do, but versus gold is like a little bit more of this unpredictable. There's a lot of macro factors involved for the gold price to move and start trending into a bull market. But so yeah, we definitely see that behavior that you're describing, and I'm really happy to see it. And if
Sure.
you could do that successfully over the course of your lifetime, where you're moving in and out of precious metals and crypto, like
I know. I know.
fantastic.
It's pretty funny because this is the first time we've seen this, but we're seeing a lot, not a lot, but a lot of, especially the younger guys, more high risk. They're seeing the crypto market take off. They're actually coming to me with their silver or gold and saying, you know what, I just want to get into crypto for this next 6 to 12 months, and then I'll be back into metals. Are you seeing any of that, or yeah,
Yeah,
you're seeing that?
similar, very similar. With our, we have some very large clients that'll profit take out of crypto, buy a large position of gold or silver, and then liquidate it 6 months later, move back into crypto and back and forth. So
Sure.
it's a good situation for sure. Hopefully the government allows those markets to keep functioning and giving people that opportunity to do it. And yeah,
Sure.
yeah.
Cool. So how did you grow your businesses to 12 locations? You've been in this a long time. What was your main strategy in terms of getting your business to grow to the level it's at today?
That's a good question. um, we leveraged two things. One was a successful affiliate program, which we partner with precious metal dealers and media personalities, and we offer them commissions for referrals or for interviews like this one, for example, where I'd come on and talk about gold to your following, and if they converted into clients of ours, we'd pay a commission to that affiliate, which has been successful. And we did a lot of YouTube educational stuff early days. We did a series called Inside the Vault, which I'm super proud of.
Yeah,
It's
and I
filmed.
remember. I didn't know that
Yeah,
was. I was. That's a great series. You got millions and millions of views for that.
yeah. We
Did you?
had super. That was not our goal. Our goal was to do a series of 8 videos and get 25,000 views. That was our goal. But one or two of them took off and have 4 million views each or whatever. It's incredible, and but it helped a lot of people because I've been in the space a long time, and I found like I worked at Kitco growing up, so
Oh,
Kitco is a
okay.
great website.
Yep.
You can go there and read 10 news articles a day and 10 analyst commentary, and it's all about why the market is behaving the way it is. But I was like, there's a big piece missing here, and that piece is the education about what people should invest in, how they should be buying, which products, like you talked about earlier, right? And so we did Inside the Vault to answer those very simple questions
Yeah.
about investing in precious metals, and I think it was successful and it brought a lot of attention to the business, which was great. So
That was very well done. I've actually watched that multiple times, and I did not realize that was
yeah,
your videos. That's crazy. Such a small world. Yeah, good job with that. I mean, I actually got to watch that again because it was really well done. Because we're kind of trying to do the same thing. We're trying to educate. That's why I have the podcast. I mean, I think people in the precious metals market, it's an interesting business. We're really, really passionate about our product, and I think that's really what's different about precious metals entrepreneurs versus other businesses. I think a lot of people just sell a product to make money.
Hmm.
I think we're very passionate about the product we're selling, which allows us to really want to educate because I think we realize how important it is for people to have a position in precious metals. Um, and I think that it translates into the passion. I think the business and taking it real serious and really trying to grow it and educate. And that's what I'm trying to do now is educate. And I really want to move forward with that and try different outlets in terms of educating via YouTube or TikTok or whatever social media platform you want. So yeah, I think you're doing a great thing. Are you guys continuing on with that with the YouTube stuff? Are you keeping that going?
Yeah, we're trying to get back to it. We've done seasons of Inside the Vault. Run out of, I guess you could say, run out of material in a sense because you end up repeating a little bit. So we've launched or relaunched a podcast, which we've relaunched a few times now. We're trying to get that off the ground. But again, the common theme, like you, is education. It's
Right.
probably the biggest. It's the biggest X factor in our industry. We need to educate investors. Gold, I always tell people, gold is a story. Like they're like, well, you meet a friend over a beer, and they're like, hey, well, tell me about gold, and you're like, well, how long do you have?
Yeah,
Because it's not an elevator pitch conversation.
it
You know what
really
I mean?
is. It really
Yeah.
is.
So you need to educate, and I'm at the same point in my career where I feel like that's the most important thing I could probably do at this point is try to pass on knowledge, do podcasts, whatever. Um, the LBMA and the World Gold Council also see the same thing. They've done these large surveys of investors and they've accumulated all this data, and they're like, we need to do a better job of educating people because they don't and creating credibility. They also, our industry has a credibility issue because there are some shysters out there, unfortunately, especially in the US and especially in the IRA space. There's a lot of kind of predatory selling happening with older people taking their IRA money, and it's awful, and it's got to stop. And so between the education and the credibility, if we can finally get that figured out, I think a lot more people will be buying gold and silver. And, you got like the likes of Costco entering the market. Fantastic. Maybe not for, guys like us who now have to compete with Costco, but it brings a lot of eyeballs and credibility in general to our space, which is good.
Yeah. At first I was like, man, they got to get their hands in everything, don't they? You know what? The amount of people that have reached out to me about the Costco, I mean, that's exactly what it is. It's a way to talk about gold and silver. I think it's fantastic. And again, we'll always have an advantage over them because, I mean, they're not sitting down and talking strategy or anything like that. It's just a product they're selling, and it is what it is. And it's not like their pricing is that fantastic, but people assume because it's Costco and they're known to be cheap that you're going to get your gold and silver for much cheaper. But I mean, that's not necessarily the case. They limit how much you can buy. They limit the variety is very limited. They don't offer storage services. They don't buy back. So, or maybe they do now. I'm not sure.
I don't think so. No, not that I'm aware of. No, they don't buy back.
So, I mean, there's a lot of restrictions when it comes to Costco. But I mean, if you're just looking to buy a gold bar, and hey, by all means, go ahead. But yeah, I agree. I think it is great for the amount of people that walk through Costco and see those gold bars on display. I think it's a great thing for the market, and I think it brings a lot of conversations out. And yeah, I think it's super bullish in the long term.
Yeah, and I mean, hey, when they were selling, I think somewhere between 200 to 300 million a month in gold. Last time I saw some numbers, I mean, it just helps with demand in general. I mean, it's just good to see that kind of volume.
Great.
Going out through a large retailer. So, no, I think the future in general for precious metals, I'm more optimistic today than I was 10 years ago about, our market and the future and young people. Yeah, they want it differently. They want it served up on their mobile phone. They might want to use an app. I still think going to the retail store is ultimately, it's awesome. If you have a guy like you that you trust, you go in there and have a real conversation. You look them in the eye. You get a good product, a fair deal.
Right.
The world needs that. But yeah, I think the market's in a pretty good place, and I'm seeing a lot of good stuff from the LBMA and the World Gold Council right now. I think they finally are starting to figure out what needs to be done in our marketplace, and happy to be a part of that. Yeah.
Awesome. All right, Mark. Well, it was a pleasure talking to you. I really appreciate you joining me today. If you could just tell our viewers where they can find you, your storage services. I think we get a lot of people that want either us or storing it offshore, so we can have a conversation after. But sure. I'll provide a link below. But maybe where can they find you on the internet?
Sure. Our website is SWP Cayman. That is our main website, swpcayman.com. You'll find everything you need about us and our services there. We also do the YouTube series Inside the Vault. If you're interested, check that out. It's good for education.
So I really highly recommend watching it. It's honestly one of the greatest videos in the precious metals market. So
I love hearing that. Thank you. That's very flattering coming from you. And yeah, no, totally. Thanks for having me on. It was a lot of fun, great questions, and always happy to come back and chat again.
Sure, I'd love to do this again when gold's above 3,000.
Let's make that happen.
Absolutely. All right, Mark. Thanks again.
Thanks, Michael. Appreciate it.
Bye.